Hi, welcome to Tuesdays with Terra. I'm Terra Bundance, and today I'm going to talk about being an external processor versus an internal processor. One of the things that's come to my understanding and to my awareness is besides an introvert and an extrovert, and of course, there's also ambivert, which is someone that's kind of right in the middle. There's also internal processors and external processors, and then there's some that are right in the middle. So some people tend to process their thoughts by talking about them. They might need a friend who can listen to them, or they might have a partner who they work it out and say, "Just let me talk through this. I don't need you to fix it or change it or do anything about it. I just need to get it out of my head." And then there are internal processors who tend to process information very much internally. In other words, an internal processor probably, when they're working through something, won't talk to anyone. They'll be very quiet, withdrawn, even seeming. And to an external processor, that can feel very uncomfortable. And for an internal processor, witnessing an external processor's way of moving through something might cause anxiety in an internal processor because they don't need to process that much information. It's too much information coming at them out loud. So, one of the things that I've been working on lately, and I'm just going to share it with you because why not? It's just one more thing to share about things that I'm learning and things that I'm going to be putting in my Tools for the Empath book is just how to be present with people who process things differently from you. So, if I am with, say, my partner, and he is an internal processor, and I'm definitely an external processor. I love to talk about things. I love to talk through things. I want to talk about things. I want to express my feelings about things. And for him, whenever I have to share something or want to talk through something, I really need to set it up for him. In other words, I need to say, "Hey, I want to talk through something with you. I don't need you to do anything with the information. I just need you to listen, but it might take about 10 minutes or 15 minutes for me to get through it. Do you have the headspace for that, or do you have the energy or the, you know, ability to sit through that?" And sometimes he does, and sometimes he doesn't. And so I've got to find ways to process information for myself. So I might journal if he's not available. I might journal, or I might reach out to one of my friends who is also an external processor. I've gotten very comfortable with the app called Marco Polo. And with the Marco Polo app, you can talk on a video to a friend or a group of friends. So I call it Marco Polo therapy. And of course, that leads to another great resource for an external processor is some form of talk therapy. Sometimes that's why certain people go to therapy, isn't just to process old things and old baggage, it's to also process just information that comes up and they don't have anyone else to talk about it with. So, because I'm not an internal processor, I can't speak so much to what the tools for an internal processor might be, but I can certainly put it out there that for an internal processor to just communicate, even if it's just a few words, "Hey, I'm working through something," to their external processor, friend or partner or family member. "Hey, I'm working through something. You know how I do this. I internally process, so I might be quiet for a little while." Sometimes for an internal processor, that's hard to communicate. So if an external processor comes to an internal processor and says, "Hey, I noticed you've been quiet lately. Is everything okay?" For the internal processor to maybe take a moment and say, "Oh, yeah, there has been a lot going on. I'm working through this and this with work, or this and that with my family member, or whatever. And I am working through it." Because a lot of times when an internal processor goes inward, for an external processor, it looks like they're shutting down. And because an external processor really connects through communication and connection verbally, it can feel very stressful. And then the same can happen for an internal processor with when somebody's externally processing all the time. It can be very stressful. So to recognize and understand that there is a difference and that we each have ways of going through things and ways of processing information and moving through something, neither one of them is right or wrong. It's just what works for each person. And so the most important thing that can happen is some form of communication, even if it's brief for the internal processors that might be watching this, just like, hey, I'm processing. I promise to get back with you once I've gotten to the other side of it. And for an external processor to say, hey, I need to process this. Are you available? And if not, finding other ways to process. So this is something I just felt like might be helpful to some people who maybe haven't made the connection to why they communicate differently from their partner. And I could easily kind of put it in boxes and say women are this or men are that, but generally speaking, that's not always the case. There's probably a majority of women that tend to be more external processors, but not always. And then, like, my dad's an introvert, but he's an external processor, and that can be very confusing for an introvert because they don't know who to talk to. So then you think about other people, like my husband, who's an extrovert but an internal processor. Might be difficult to communicate that because everybody kind of expects him to be a little more outgoing. I'm an extrovert external processor. So the kind of person that I am kind of makes sense to people. And then there's family members who are introverts and internal processors. Kind of makes sense because people know what to expect from them. So, yeah, it's just a matter of understanding how we all think and how we all process. And we may not have it all 100% understood or worked out, but if nothing else, having awareness about it is helpful and beneficial. So, take that for what it's worth. My main goal here is just to share information because it's things that I'm working on and things that I'm discovering and things that I'm learning. And so I am sending you blessings for this beautiful Tuesday and have a blessed and beautiful week. And I look forward to seeing you back here on each week's Tuesdays with Tara. Have a blessed day.